So how do you break through the conditioning? Breaking through people's defenses is a lot like listening. In fact, it's mostly listening. There's a great fable I read as a kid that is conditioned just about every time I communicate. And the fable is that there's a guy walking down the road with a big cloak on him, and the wind and the sun are getting into a debate, and the wind says, well, I can get that cloak off your back. And the sun says, well, I can get that cloak off your back. And they make a bet. I don't know what they bet. I mean, they're elements. And so the wind goes howling down and tries to get its windy fingers into the guy and rip the cloak off the guy. What does he do? Tighter and tighter and tighter, right? And then the wind gets exhausted and then decides to blow down houses in Canada for the last 6 months. And then the sun says, okay, I got this, man. And what does he do? Stronger and harder and harder and harder. What does the guy do? He's like, damn, this is hot. He takes off his cloak. That is breaking through people's defenses. If you go for the kill, all you get is a shield, right? If you listen to people, what's your relationship with money? Tell me, what do you think of money? I mean, money is one of these great new topics that we really should talk about more. I'm very basic to people. What do you live on and how do you get your money? I'm curious. And I share it myself too. My blockchain is public. Go ahead.
If you have any questions about liberty, you can just ask the sun.
That's right.
Yeah, my question is more around, like, what are your thoughts on what governments start to look like if they can't control money? Like, if they can't enforce that?
No, nothing like that. Right now, the basic deal in democracy is I will tax you $500 and I will pay you $1,000. Now, mathematically, that's impossible. The reality is to pay you $500 I need to tax you $1,000 because I've got to pay for all the tax collectors and the bureaucrats and the blah, blah, blahs, right? And so having governments make this deal that makes it seem legitimate in the here and now or valuable or useful, where they give you $1,000 back and tax you $500 through debt and inflation. Debt and inflation you cannot do through Bitcoin. You cannot do debt and inflation. There's no Bitcoin protocol saying sell off 5 million fetuses. On the block, here we go, let's go, right? And so because of that, the entire structure, that's what I mean to say, a state is an effect of the control of money. Right? Money is the maintenance. And when you change money, you are unplugging people in very disoriented ways. So you cannot have our existing political system or anything that even remotely resembles it without, and you cannot have war, right? And so on. The injustice of kids being born, what, $300,000 in debt, you can't have that in Bitcoin. So you can't bribe people with other people's money in a Bitcoin-based society. You can't have the state in any way that we understand it now, which is one of the reasons I'm very enthusiastic.
Thank you very much, Stefan. My name is Morpheus, and I don't really have a question, but a couple comments.
Morpheus never had any questions. Yeah, just things that blow
well, you know, it's always good to bat things around, but the concept is like we have the Social Security system that we have to pay for people in the future for the work they did today. Well, the reason why we have to have this is because we have this inflationary money system that we have to come up with all these wonderful schemes to combat the effects of the inflationary money system for the, to protect some of the people. And the other comment is I also see that because of Bitcoin, we're moving into a world where things are done because of persuasion, because now with Bitcoin, they can't steal your money. They can't go, hey, that's our money in your bank account, thank you very much, and have a nice day. So we're moving more towards I see Bitcoin as being a catalyst to move into the kind of world that a God of my understanding would want to have.
Yeah, I hope so. And some libertarians insult the criminal free market by comparing Social Security to a Ponzi scheme. What a ridiculous insult to Ponzi schemes that is. No, Ponzi schemes are voluntary. Anyway, the next one.
This is a little more closer time frame and a little more specific of a question. And one of the things that I've been seeing, and I take it that Bitcoin is not the end-all be-all of society in 100 years, but I think it would be kind of interesting if the world's first trillionaire was the person who hacked and stole money from Mount Gox. And I mean, it's sort of like, and you talk about, playing fields that are not fair. And so I guess how do you see that playing out?
No, this I think goes to risk too, right? So since FDIC, this insurance stuff of the government that covers your bank accounts, since all that came in, people have forgotten about the risk of the monetary system. I was on Alex Jones yesterday, and another interviewer was like, well, it's really bad, all of these companies going, no, it's great, I'm sorry for the people who lost money, but by God, it's fantastic. You know what Bitcoin organizations don't get? Massive government bailouts. Oh my God, that's fantastic. Go back to any computer magazine in 1980 and see how many of those companies are still around. You'll find maybe one if you're lucky. The failure of those companies moved resources to people who were better at doing what they're doing. The whole point of a free market is for things to fail, to release the resources back into people who can handle them more competently. The failures of the Bitcoin organizations are the surest sign that it's going to succeed and win, because idiots are getting weeded out. It's like having an Olympics where everyone gets a gold. Nobody's getting a gold. Let's remember, it's buyer beware time again, because we've got some freedom.
Hi, this is Jose. I'm from Mexico. I actually handle investments in fiat and in altcoins. I have investments. So actually I see it as a compliment, because I see many people really love Bitcoin, want to see it like a confrontation between actual financial system and this financial system. Well, it is an opportunity to make a better economic, financial, political, and social life, and complement each other, not to confront each other, because actually the innovation, for example, is open code. Well, for financial transactions, it's closed code, but it exists. I've seen it working under the hood for many years. So,
I'm sorry to interrupt. You're the financial expert, so I'm just speaking out of my own mouth here, but I view it as a win-lose situation. Good money drives out bad, bad money drives out good. Bitcoin is what money should always have been, but technologically was not able to become. Fiat money is slavery. Fiat money is debt, it is slavery, it is immoral, it is predatory, it is warmongering, it is evil, it is monstrous, it cripples the poor, it destroys human lives, it sells off the innocent. It is a monstrous, vampiric, predatory, evil, disgusting system, and I do not want to see it coexisting with a free market currency.
that is not actually money, but what people do with money. And that can come to either of the two roles. Depends on what you want to do with it. I think that it's a better way to make things better future for the economy.
From a practical standpoint, diversifying your portfolio, I understand that, but there is going to be a confrontation between freedom and tyranny, and I sure know which side I would win. Let me get the next question, because I think we're a little low on time. Thank you.
Something that may go along with your answer just there. I feel like the common criticism of libertarian thought is that it's more of a thought experiment, and we can't apply it in the real world. Get out of your bubble. And I feel like that's also a common criticism of Bitcoin, that we're all just early adopters on some big speculative bubble. And I see there's huge merchants that are accepting it, so I think that there's already some answers to that, but it still is a persistent perception about that we still need to apply it better.
Yeah, well, to the uninformed, everything which gains value quickly is a bubble. Just using the word bubble is not an indication of any knowledge. For people who compare Bitcoin and tulips, I know I'd like to put those tulips. Tulips was so obviously a fad. It's a goddamn plant, we can't even smoke it. So, of course that was a fad. This is different. This is friction-free money. This is the exchange of value with no overhead. This is bypassing the entire financial parasite class. I think traditional libertarians have been saying education, politics, education, politics, education, politics. That's how we'll take down the state from the inside. We'll win. We'll take it over. And what Bitcoin people are like, hey, look, I just bypassed the whole damn thing. I don't need to do any of that stuff. Wow, man! It's like me going into a fight with Muhammad Ali with a blow dart. It's annoying. Muhammad Ali trains, and I just got the poison dart with some frog poison. So, it's a way to just bypass the whole fight. Just live like the state's not there, and you're as close to freedom as you're going to get in this life.
You had mentioned your monopoly example, where one person starts out with a lot more money, but isn't that how Bitcoin is today? Because something like 100 addresses own half of the Bitcoins out there right now. So if this is the future of money, we're going to have a small number of people controlling most of the money.
But first of all, they can only maintain the value of that by diluting it at some point, right? In other words, they have to spend in order.
But they'll simply transfer those assets, like Bitcoin, to real assets, like houses, cars.
You're saying Bitcoin is not a real asset.
Well, no. When I mean real asset, I mean like hard assets.
It's like saying email is not a real letter.
But let me rephrase that. They could start buying out companies.
Yeah, my issue is not with wealth, right? My issue is not with wealth. And the fact that half the Bitcoins are owned by, Yakamoto and his dog, I don't care. What is important is that right now, money buys you political power, which buys you privilege in the market, which means it's no longer a market, but it's not a fascist oligarchy, right? So my issue is not with people's aggregation of money, but the degree to which that aggregation of money is used to buy political privilege. Will Bitcoin be accepted for political donations at some point? It certainly is possible, but those people can be pretty easily identified and ostracized if we don't like what they're doing. So it's not the concentration of wealth. That will dilute over time. Of course, the early adopters should make a fortune. Of course they should, because they're early adopters. Good for them, right? I mean, but it will dilute over time. It has to.
Hi, my name is Blake Anderson. I'm an anarchist.
Oh, sorry, that lady was a psychic, so we just did. You don't need the mic if we're psychic. It's okay.
My ESP is broken, unfortunately, right now, so I can't repair it. I am an anarchist, and I am right now engaged in local politics in Minnesota to try to help get people elected that will be easier on the regulatory environment locally of Bitcoin. And I wanted to know how you feel about that kind of conflict of interest. That I don't believe in government.
It's, for all grand experiments, you start with something local, right? I mean, if you want to lift 500 pounds, you start with 5 pounds, right? So if you believe that you have the ability to infiltrate an evil organization and turn it into virtue, don't start with government. Don't start with the biggest and most evil organizations. Just start with something local. So, like infiltrate your local mafia and turn it into a charity, right? And if you can do that, and if that's too scary for you, because they're the mafia, you could say infiltrate the local gay rights group and try to turn them into homophobes. Or you could infiltrate some local Spanish group and try to make them anti-Spanish, right? So if you feel that you have the capacity to infiltrate a group and turn it against its core purpose, don't start with something as huge as the government, start with something local. But of course, everyone laughs because they know that's never going to happen. You're never going to infiltrate the mafia and turn it into a whole bunch of Mother Teresa wannabes. You're probably just going to get axed on a garage floor somewhere, right? And so, if we can't lift the 5 pounds of turning criminal organizations to virtue, forget about the state. I mean, they're much bigger, much more powerful, and they have legitimacy in the eyes of the common person. No. I mean, or, show me with the mafia, and then I'll listen to you about the state. Yeah.
Finally figured out what it was. I like your little quantum jump, just jump out of it. And the thing that we need to realize, and I can't remember if somebody was talking about it, is the passive revolution, right? If you really want to take down those in power, you take away what gives them power, which is their money, right? If we move, and the thing is that the only reason they have power is because we gave it to them, but we've forgotten that.
Well, it's the Al-Qaeda strategy, right? How do you take down an empire? You provoke that empire into fighting unwinnable wars, draining the treasury, and destroying the military. Good thing we all stepped that one out of the way, right? Ooh, that was a close one. Yeah, of course. I mean, this is how you take down giant empires, is you destroy them through unwinnable wars, and you get them to fight something like regulating Bitcoin, which is going to be about as easy as bringing democracy to Iraq, and will never be achieved. Go ahead.
Howdy, I have a tough question for you. Big VC money is coming into the Bitcoin space, and VCs are going to be buying up, through angel and large investments into all the transaction processing, which would be the industrial miners, all the applications, all the software, all the layers that go on top. And if you look at VC money historically, there is always the next out. And if you look at some of the videos, like the one James did on the hockey stick at the 5 or 6 year point on all the .coms and technology companies, we're going to have the same hockey stick for the Bitcoin companies, Bitcoin itself, and mining. And when that hockey stick hits, and we have a billion users with Bitcoin, and there's this unbelievable exit plan, it should be the big banks, probably that will buy the transaction houses and a lot of these, companies right now that are funded by VCs for the exit. So what's going to prevent Bitcoin and all the things around the Bitcoin infrastructure from turning into establishment?
Well, it's because I think of the Bitcoin architecture like physics, right? So there are engineering companies that will all offer to build you a bridge, but none of them can redesign physics itself, right? None of them can say, well, I'll build you a bridge out of Baltimore, but don't worry, I'm turning gravity down to 5%. They all have to compete within the same physics, right? Some of them will be better and some of them will be worse. Now, people can come in and say, well, I'm going to add value to Bitcoin and so on, but it's like ISPs and TCP/IP, right? Nobody's really making money off TCP/IP. The universalization, the network effect of TCP/IP is what gives it its value. So the fact that venture capitalists are going to come in is great. The danger for venture capitalists is they're going to try and hedge their bets as non-libertarians by appealing to regulatory agencies to socialize the cost of validating so empty docs doesn't happen again, right? So they're going to try and offload regulation so they don't have to pay for it onto the taxpayers, because that's, we talk about rich people. And I mean, economically, if you take ethics and set fire, then economically it makes sense to socialize the cost and privatize the profits. So my concern is that venture capitalists are going to come in and they're going to start using their Washington contacts to say, if you regulate this, great, it gains legitimacy for my investment community, and I get to offload the costs of validating the security and validating the business viability of these companies and so on. And then they're going to say, well, if you regulate me, you're not going to ban me. And of course they're concerned about that perception. Because Bitcoin, of course, is testing, you know, that old maxim, there's no such thing as bad publicity. I mean, what do you hear about Bitcoin these days? Thefts, fire sales, murders, suicide. I mean, they're waiting for the Bitcoin Godzilla to take Tokyo, for God's sakes, right? So we really are testing the limits of there's no such thing as bad publicity. If you're an investor with a conservative investor base, if you're an entrepreneur with a conservative investor base, you're going to want something that's less scary for them, and the best way to get that in the short run is not wait for the market to come up with a Bitcoin seal of approval to avoid getting doxed again, but to get regulators involved, and then you can say to your constituents, oh yes, it's been regulated by the government, it's safe, and then like, oh, it's safe, you know, the government. So that's my concern, that they're going to try and get the government involved to make better profits in the short term. I think we're out of time, right? Thank you everybody so much. Always a pleasure having you.